know about the Latinx thing? I didn't know that was a thing.
What
You didn't know about that?
What do you mean?
I was reading this article, and
It's
You know
Latino and Latina are male and female gender specific.
Right.
So, and the word Latin also gets it done as far as, I don't know.
yeah, so it's supposed to be like that's how you
Latinx? You should
right.
say that.
You're supposed to say Latinx because
Is this new?
it's
I'm not doing
it's
it.
a couple years in the making.
They can fuck off.
Well, see, in Spanish, the masculinized version of these words is considered gender neutral, but that obviously doesn't work for some of us, like myself. And so I think it's appropriate to assign masculinity as gender neutral when it isn't. So I'm Latinx.
Well,
Ooh,
it's
I
interesting
like it.
because my kids are Latin, and this is another one of the things that we touch on.
Latinx.
Yeah, there it is. And we touch it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Well, we touch on this a little, not this pronunciation or, but we touch on that a little bit in the movie of there is that feeling, when we went in to adopt our kids, we were just open. We were like, look, we're pretty general age-wise. We didn't go in expecting 3 kids, just, we thought 1 and it sort of turned into that.
Right.
But you're open to it, and you just and they ask you, well, what about ethnicity? And you just go, yeah, whatever, wherever the need is, whoever needs parents, let us know. But then when it happens and your kids, in my case, my kids turned out to be Latin, then you have you start to kind of think about like, oh well, is that okay? Is that gonna look like the white savior thing? Is that gonna look weird? Is that am I saying things right and whatever? And what ends up happening is this really wonderful thing where your family becomes this melting pot, where at first because of the times that we live in right now, it's a little scary jumping into that because
That's
you're
so
thinking
weird.
about what but you ultimately are just going to think about who the kids are, what their need is, and how obviously wonderful they are. But all of those things come up, and that's the kind of thing that wouldn't even be, why would the Latinx thing have anything to do with my house? Well, now it does.
Yeah.
So I've got all that, all the time, and I actually find it really interesting.
The Latinx thing?
No, not that specifically, but just that my family is now this little melting pot.
Yeah, that part's cool.
And it's cool.
I reject Latinx completely.
Well, it is cool, but it's also very strange that is and it would be a real point of concern. Like you would worry about, how do I handle this this culture without cultural appropriation? How do I bring my kid and embrace the Latino or Latinx culture? Like how do I handle that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do I do it without getting called a racist, right?
Well, and it gets back to what I was talking about before, where you're trying to just put your kids' needs first and just deal with them as children, as individuals, as human beings,
Right.
But at the same time, you're with other parents, and there's in the adoption community, and really in every direction, there's mixed race families in the adoption community. And you're kind of learning from them, and it just I don't know, it opens up a lot of conversations with your own kids, and just the movies you watch, the foods you eat sometimes, and I think it's great.
No, it's great.
I think it's really
The language thing for me it stands out more because my whole life I've said Latino, like my mother's Latina, and it's just funny to me that
and
I
you
would
speak
say,
Spanish.
He speaks fluently, which is hilarious because Tom has some great stories about people not thinking he speaks Spanish. Because when you look at him, you're like, oh, this fucking American guy.
Yeah,
he looks like a regular American guy, but he speaks perfect. Like I've been around him before when he asks people questions. Like, whoa, I forgot you could do that.
Yeah.
It's like someone who that could do backflips.
Right.
And they just do a backflip. You're like, oh, I forgot you could do that.
Yeah, it's true, and it throws people off.
Yeah, because you look so American.
Yeah,
and that you look like a guy. I mean, if you look like a guy who loves football.
Yeah.
Like just a fucking American, a regular American, but he speaks perfect. He rolls the R's.
It's even when I travel abroad, like to Spanish-speaking countries, even though Spanish-speaking countries are also melting pots, have different. They still look at you like, oh shit, like
Yeah, look at this motherfucker.
Yeah, it really throws people out. The craziest one wasn't even with me. My sister, one of my sisters who also speaks Spanish, went to the Naval Academy's Linguistics Center, so in the Navy, and she was in the Navy for a while, and she learned Mandarin.
Whoa!
And it was really intense, it was really intense. And we went to a restaurant together, and the guy, it was one of those restaurants, like a Benihana type, where they chop stuff up, and the guy was someone asked like where he's from, and he said somewhere in China, and she started speaking Mandarin, and he dropped the thing, and he was like like he saw a ghost, and she's spitting back to him in pretty fluent Mandarin.
Wow!
And he stops, and he was like, "I've never seen this before," and he's like, "I've never seen a white person do this," and we were like, "Yeah." Pretty wild, huh? And then he turned to us. He goes, "I don't think you understand how hard it is to speak this language." And I was like, "I have a pretty good idea. I can't do it." So, And then just watching it, he was just like, he couldn't even start cooking. Like,
how long did it take your sister to learn?
Well, she was in when you get into like that Naval Institute program, they have you going. I think it was something like 8 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week. So it's super intense. It's almost like
just learning Mandarin.
Yeah, yeah, and it overwhelms people. People drop out, almost like in a physical stressed way, where like some people just can't handle it. Like boot camp. And I forget how long she was in it. And she didn't reach the level of super, fluent like we're speaking English, but she was able to communicate in Mandarin.
Can she read it?
She was reading and writing. That's the thing is she was telling me one time about how many characters, and it was just unbelievable. And like there's sounds for expressions. Like I'm gonna screw up because I don't remember it, but she was like, you can do something like "oh," and that means like means an actual phrase.
Oh, wow.
Like there's so many, and that there's characters that mean entire expressions as well. That I was like, it's just our brains are so married to our alphabet and way of speaking that it's a real jump to learn that,
It really is fascinating when you travel and you listen to people speaking their native tongue and you realize how strangely different languages are across the entire planet.
Yeah.
I mean, just unbelievable. Like I was in Thailand this summer and you listen to people talk Thai and everything stretches. It's got like a stretch to it. It's like a weird it's a very odd language. I'm like, compare that to like German or Dutch.
Yeah.
Like these, like the Germans got those hard sounding.
Really hard, yeah.
It's like this weird difference.
Yeah, and the Latin root word, like languages, all do have a flowy, singy, songy kind. They're kind of nice to listen to.
It's a beautiful language.
Yeah.
It's really nice to listen to.
I mean, I like listening. I don't speak Portuguese. I like listening to it.
Yeah, Brazilian Portuguese is amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds so cool.
And we listen to French music sometimes at home, just in the kitchen. Yeah, like cooking or something. I don't know what the hell they're saying.
I
like it.
that when I write. I listen to Spanish music when I write because I have no idea what they're saying.
I do that too. Where you listen to music in a foreign language, so that it doesn't impede
distract you.
Yeah. It's like it sounds good. It gives me a little something, but I can still think about the exact things that I'm thinking about.
Well, I recently had this interesting experience. I sent you one of them that the trailers for the movie get the movie itself and the trailers get dubbed into all kinds of different languages. So you have this dialogue that I wrote, or me and John wrote or whatever, and you get to hear it in these different languages. And I sent you the Spanish version because that's different. And I'm not going to pretend that I understand that much what the difference between it is. But that's predominantly what you speak, right?
No.
Oh, it isn't?
No, what I speak predominantly is just like specifically South American and more specifically Peruvian dialect.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, great.
So, but I mean, I did study. I studied in Madrid for 6 months, and once your ears are trained to it, you can listen to someone say a sentence and know that that's from Spain. Like that's
really interesting.
Then there's the Cuban version of it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's a wild version of the way they.
All the island dialects sound dramatically different.
Wow.
Like if you listen to somebody from Cuba, Puerto Rico.
Is it a comparison like English speakers from America versus English speakers from Ireland?
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. And I would say, I always think of Spain as like our Britain, in a way. Like the language, probably English is from England.
Right.
That's where the language, that is how you speak it. Spanish and Castilian, that comes from Spain. They're speaking OG Spanish. And then it all kind of came over here, and it's influenced. And every country has different ways of saying things, obviously different slang, all different curses, all different expressions, completely different. Even words like as simple as like to pick up, you know, coger, pick something up. You know, you say that in Mexico or Argentina, it literally means to fuck. So
really?
Yeah. So if you're like, you know, quiero coger esta agua, like you're saying like, I want to fuck this water. Yeah. Like, but esta botella, I'm gonna fuck this bottle. Yeah. Like, yeah. My mom told me that she was in Argentina, like in her youth, and traveled there and was with a bellhop, and she was like, cógeme la maleta, which is like, pick up that suitcase. But he was like, okay, because she was basically in slang saying, fuck my suitcase, you know? So it's just, but like, there's like, and there's also like severity of words, like joder is the word, like there's so many ways to say fuck, of course, in every language, but joder in Spain is saying fuck. It's like going like, oh, fuck. But like when you say it in Peru, no me jodes, it's a softer, it's not taken as severely. So it's not read the same way. You're not saying, you're saying like you're complaining, but you're like, it's like, it's taken as like, oh, don't mess with me.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
So like, even when I would go to Spain, like they were like, damn, you curse a lot. I was like, really? And then they, you know, we went over that one. And then like 6 months later, they were like, you actually do curse a lot all the time. And I was like, yeah, that's probably right.